The International Monetary Fund has trimmed its global growth projections with a particular warning of high uncertainty and banking sector stress. Concerningly, the largest reduction among major economies was for South Africa, predicting growth of a mere 0.1%, down 1.1 percentage points from previous estimates. On the other hand, advanced nations are predicted to get marginal growth of around 1.3%, still less than half of the expansion from 2022. Dr. Lumkile Mondi from the Wits School of Economics and Finance joins us now to talk about the impact of this prediction and the outlook for not only ours, but other markets which affect the growth of our economy. Good evening and welcome, Dr. Mondi. Always a privilege to have you with us. Against the backdrop of our own predictions on economic growth, is this a fair prediction?
Perhaps maybe it could be on the optimistic side, given the fact that South Africa's infrastructure is being destroyed. We know that we're on stage 6 at the moment, and we're very worried that by July, when we're in the midwinter, we could be at stage 8. We know that this power crisis that we have has got a huge impact also in other sectors, such as water. So what I'm saying is that things for South Africa could be much deeper. So the 0.1% expectation could go beyond or below that to negative territory if we don't urgently bring in new generation capacity through the private sector to supplement what we have, to push growth and therefore improve on the predictions that the IMF is forecasting.
You're making me think of that song, and it's a bit of a silly song, but how low can you go? And I guess the short answer is a little bit further. So again, what then would be the short and long-term impact for us, given the outlook on electricity, our infrastructure deterioration, and various other factors that cause a perforation in our market?
There are very quick wins, one of which basically is to go wild on bringing in and approving the application for the renewable energy generation, so that at least in 18 months, we've got much more generation capacity as we try and fix Eskom challenges. So it's not a short-term fix, really. The second issue also relates, therefore, to the continuous decline of the rule of law in South Africa. We know that parts of Tswane don't have electricity because of thuggish behavior, as well as organized crime. As we're talking earlier, Imam, looking at the parliamentary proceeding in relation to the Besta story, you could see that the elements of what had seen in Mexico when gangs, particularly drug lords under El Chapo and many others, had captured key levers of security, including politicians, to dictate economic development in that country. In South Africa is very interesting because what we're seeing from thugs is really just a continuous destruction of infrastructure, aided by many political people, but also professionals, as we had in the state capture. So all these things indicate to us that South Africa needs to go beyond what the financial task forces talk about, but also looking at possibilities of what it means, for example, to have an ANC government that has led and put us to this situation whereby gangs, organized criminals are controlling key levers for economy and destroying infrastructure, and therefore undermining the promise of 1994.
It's quite a scathing assessment that you make there. And a lot of experts will agree with you that it's not altogether unwarranted. And I was going to ask you whether you think these measures, such as having inquiries, such as the one that you and I both just watched unfolding in Parliament, can mitigate that impression. But when you invoked the grey listing thing, it reminded us that there were very specific conditions around that grey listing which behoved us to take certain actions. And I suppose it will depend on what actions come out of these particular parliamentary hearings that might mitigate and indeed rehabilitate our image. But I want to go to this Chief Economist, Pierre-Olivier Gouin-Shah, the IMF's Chief Economist. is citing global financial turmoil and the tumult among some of the major banks like Credit Suisse as reigniting financial stability concerns around the world, with the expectation that things will worsen if it persists. What is your assessment on the outlook, both globally and here in South Africa? You've answered the South African portion a little bit, but maybe just together with our global counterparts.
So globally, really, we've seen the dominance of finance and lax regulatory policies from central banks, and therefore reckless lending taking place across various economies, whether it's in Europe or it's America, and in this case, undermining what the role of finance is. The role of finance is allocating scarce capital to productive activities. These are the activities that create opportunities, whether you're building electric vehicles or new generation capacity, because of the linkages and multipliers in terms of job creation. So they chase for quick returns through financial structures, which give the banks that sell these products huge returns without anything being produced, has come back to bite us. So therefore, I see a continuous bank failure being undermined by weak global governance, where many political regimes are extremely weak politically, and they're pushing an agenda of war, trying to hide the deep-seated economic problems, which require new leadership around how capitalism, as we've understood it, has gone finance and undermined its core, which is production. So I'm expecting that there could be a crisis going forward, but at the same time, it is a wake-up call for financial sector to really start allocating capital to the productive sector, so that you're able to produce goods and services that not only meet the elite, but also meet the basic needs of people. And that requires leadership. And unfortunately, I think in the globe, including here at home, that is lacking. So we're in a very difficult period, I think, in the next 4 to 5 years, not only in South Africa, but in the globe, due to lack of political leadership, but also due to banks that have allocated capital to finance rather than creating opportunities by allocating into productive capacities.
Dr. Lumkile Mondi, I was excited to talk to you. I wasn't excited at what you would possibly say, and I was right, unfortunately. At least there was a little sliver of what we could do, and that is essentially kind of, throwing down the gauntlet to the financial services sector, saying here's an opportunity for you to do something, not only professionally, but also morally, to try and lift the country out of financial doldrums. It's a conversation we'll continue to have, and we thank you for your scholarship. Dr. Lumkile Mondi from the Wits School of Economics and Finance.